Hello everyone, it's Dana. This is my first blog post of 2021, so I'm excited about that. Today we are talking about caffeine and hot flashes. Is caffeine a hidden cause of hot flashes? Does it make hot flashes worse? What about other menopausal symptoms? What about decaf? What about tea? And we're going to go a little deeper than what you generally see when you Google this. We're going to look at the science and the general recommendations and what they have to say. We're going to look at what you need to know about the genetic component of caffeine metabolism. And then I'm going to give you my herbalist's perspective on the whole caffeine hormone connection throughout the whole menopausal transition. So let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to start with the science and the general recommendations. Is it true that caffeine can make hot flashes worse? And what about other menopausal symptoms? Does caffeine make those worse? So you'll find lots of articles if you Google this, and they all say pretty much the same thing. The data on this is still a little bit preliminary, but they agree that it's enough to confirm that yes, if you're having a lot of hot flashes, that caffeine can trigger hot flashes, and they recommend laying off the caffeine or using a lot less of it until the hot flashes are under control. Caffeine revs up your system. It causes your heart to beat faster, which makes the blood move more quickly through your blood vessels, and it can trigger flushing. They don't know exactly how much caffeine is involved or what type, but they are convinced that there is a relationship there, that caffeine can trigger hot flashes. So that's good, but to me, it's like way too vague. So let's go a little bit deeper and see what's going on. So caffeine is a vasoconstrictor. It makes your blood vessels constrict. Why would it cause flushing? Well, it's because of the way it revs up your system and causes your heart to pump more quickly. Caffeine is also hot in nature, but we're going to come back to that in a minute. And I want to talk too about what about caffeine and other menopausal symptoms, because it's not just hot flashes. There is a strong relationship between caffeine and its ability to trigger anxiety and heart palpitations, and it can easily make insomnia worse in a lot of people. So since these are all common symptoms of menopause, if you're struggling with any of these, if you're having trouble getting any of these under control, laying off the caffeine until you've got a better handle on your menopause symptoms, it's going to help you get there more quickly. Okay, what about, are we talking caffeine, any caffeine, like tea or coffee, or is it something about the coffee itself? So what about decaf? So coffee itself has a hot nature. So while decaf doesn't have the caffeine, it's still warming. So it can actually still trigger heat, from my perspective at least. Also, a lot of decaffeinated coffee, the process that they use to decaffeinate it is they use a lot of chemicals that stay in the coffee and that you then drink in when you drink the decaf, and they can be more problematic than the caffeine. So decaf is not always a good choice. And in terms of tea, it's definitely worth considering. So some tea has a smaller amount of caffeine, but also the tea itself is not hot and acidifying and inflammatory. It doesn't have that hot nature the way that the coffee does. So tea is a better choice. Some forms of tea, like green tea, have even less caffeine than other forms. So if you are a good fast metabolizer of caffeine and any menopausal symptoms are under pretty good control, you could probably drink some caffeine, especially tea, without negative side effects. And in fact, the benefits might even outweigh the risks when it comes to some types of tea. So, but for anyone whose menopause symptoms are out of control, then I would avoid, if you can, lay off the caffeine at least until you get things in a better place. Okay, now I want to move on and talk for a minute about the genetic component of caffeine metabolism, because this is actually really interesting and really helpful. So when you're looking at what to consider, like, well, should I drink caffeine? One of the things you want to look at is what kind of caffeine metabolizer you are. It turns out there's a gene in your DNA. You've either got like a certain version of it or another version of it. And depending, you're going to be a slow metabolizer or a fast metabolizer of caffeine. The gene is, some people, if the gene is a certain way, it's easy for you to make an enzyme that helps you get rid of the caffeine. Other people, they have a really harder time making that enzyme. So if you are a fast metabolizer, you drink a cup of coffee, you get a little surge of caffeine, and your body just clears it out really quickly and efficiently. So it doesn't have a very long lasting effect on you. People who are slow metabolizers can drink a cup of coffee and for like 1 cup and for 9, or even tea, and for 9 up to 9 hours straight, be constantly having that surge of adrenaline and cortisol and their nerves jangling and their system being revved up for up to 9 hours from just 1 cup of coffee. So if you're a slow metabolizer, you're definitely going to want to be more cautious in this area. So how can you tell if you're a fast or slow metabolizer? If you're a really slow metabolizer or a really fast metabolizer, you probably already know that caffeine has a big effect on you, or seemingly almost no effect unless you drink a huge amount. But the only way to know for sure is to actually have genetic testing. You can do that these days pretty easily through something like 23andMe. And one of the things they will tell you is about what type of caffeine metabolizer you are. So if you want to fine tune your diet and your superfoods and all that, the genetic testing is a great place to start in any case. If you don't want to do that and you're not sure and your hot flashes are out of control, you can always just avoid caffeine until you're feeling better. So if you are a fast metabolizer and you're not having a lot of symptoms, you can probably have a bit of caffeine. There can be some benefits to that, and you're not going to have nearly as many of the negative side effects. If you're a slow metabolizer, you're really going to want to be very cautious with caffeine because it has a very amplified effect on your system. Now, there's something else I wanted to touch on. Caffeine, minerals, and bone density. So I'm a big fan of trying to eat a nutrient-dense diet. Give your body as many, really good nourishing nutrients as you can in everything that you eat. And caffeine tends to be sort of lacking in nutrients, but it also actually causes the body to flush certain vitamins and minerals out of your system, like calcium, magnesium, potassium, and iron. Things that we are trying really hard to hold on to and get enough of. So if you are having trouble in this area, and they have actually shown on studies too that this is more of an issue as we get older, that if you are having issues with osteoporosis or osteopenia, especially post-menopause, then caffeine can actually increase the risk of hip fracture. It can make it harder for your body to hold on to that bone density. So that is another thing to consider when you're thinking about whether caffeine is right for you. And now I want to move on to something a little bit unique. And this is more the herbalist's perspective on caffeine for women during and after menopause. And I'm going to start out by saying caffeine can make you age faster. There's a Chinese saying that goes something like, caffeine robs energy from tomorrow for you to use today. Caffeine causes a surge of adrenaline, which gives you energy now, but leaves you with a deficit overall. So think of it like this. You have an energy checking account and an energy savings account. And the goal is to get through every day only using energy from the checking account. Because if the checking account gets to zero and your day's not over and you have to keep going and you dig into savings, every time you dig into savings and use energy from your energy savings account, you pay a very, very high interest rate. And the reason the body is designed this way is so that, say you are literally being chased by a tiger, right? Or a tree falls on your child, okay? You want every bit of strength and speed and energy available to you right that minute. It doesn't matter if it takes you a week of resting to recover from that one day. You needed that energy right then. That's what the system was designed for. And you do take like a week to recover from one day of living off your energy savings account. It's like you pay that much interest, like 700% interest. And so what that means is that in terms of caffeine, so caffeine does in your body, it just opens the savings account and says, here, take this, right? It gives you the energy that comes from your energy savings account by giving you this release of cortisol and adrenaline. So what does this mean in terms of whether you should use caffeine or not? If you are a person who has unlimited energy, your savings account is full, your checking account is full, neither of them gets anywhere near zero, like you just don't have to worry about it, no menopause symptoms, no hormonal imbalance, no insulin resistance, no menopause, it's like, then, you don't have to worry about it so much. But usually you see that in like healthy teenagers who can, stay up all night and feel fine the next day. As we get older, it's much more common that we are, not having unlimited energy, that we are having trouble keeping our savings and checking energy accounts replenished. Because here's the deal. What's in your energy savings account is equivalent to your hormones. We call it your kidney jing, your deepest levels of energy reserves. It's somewhat equivalent to your hormone levels. So as those start to go down during menopause, we usually need to start to do things that help us to conserve and support those, not things that just really decrease them severely. And so that is another reason to be careful of not overdoing it on the caffeine. What it can mean is that you will see signs of aging appear a lot sooner than they would have otherwise. You're like accelerating the aging process. And also, if you have adrenal fatigue, it's going to make it worse. If you have low hormone levels, it's going to make it worse. If you have a lot of menopause symptoms, it's likely to make it worse. So, like high stress levels, all that. And now there's something else from an herbalist perspective that I want to talk about, because when people say caffeine, I don't just think hot flashes. I think insomnia, heart palpitations, and anxiety and insulin resistance, as well as hot flashes. So caffeine has strong relationships to all of these. So if you're even having really even traces of things like insomnia or heart palpitations or anxiety, I highly recommend avoiding caffeine at least for a while, especially if you're at all a slow metabolizer. One little cup of coffee in the morning can absolutely be what's keeping you awake at 3 a.m. Dr. Christiane Northrup has a really good article about that. So I just recommend, just lay off it until you're feeling better and then see how you go. I also want to talk about it in terms of weight gain. That stubborn muffin top weight gain that we get right around the belly, that's really hard to lose. So caffeine can make that worse, especially if your body is already depleted, is already struggling hormonally because of menopause, and especially if you're feeling stressed. Caffeine increases your stress hormone. So it can increase stress, it can exacerbate high cortisol, which can bring on sugar cravings, increased fat storage, and even stress-induced obesity. That is from Dr. Sarah Gottfried. So it can just kind of play into the pattern that causes that really stubborn weight gain that nobody wants. So to sum this up, the two factors that you want to consider when you're like, well, is this a big deal for me or not? Because I really like my coffee in the morning. For healthy women without adrenal fatigue, with good energy, with no insomnia, no hot flashes, no osteopenia, no anxiety, you're feeling really good, everything's in a good balance, things are replenished, then moderate amounts of caffeine, especially in the form of tea, are likely not going to have negative side effects and could even have some benefits. However, if you've got any level of out of control hot flashes, you're having trouble sleeping, you're feeling fatigued, you're struggling to keep your hormone levels high enough, or you're even flirting with osteopenia or adrenal fatigue, then you're gonna make more progress in correcting these without the caffeine. So at least until you get things replenished and stabilized, think about maybe laying off of it. Also, if you are a fast metabolizer, a moderate amount of caffeine just isn't going to have as big an effect on you. If you are a slow metabolizer, you're always going to want to be really careful with caffeine because it has a long-lasting, big effect on you. So that being said, okay, because I don't want you to just feel like I'm taking away your coffee and leaving you hanging. What do you do if you're having hot flashes or anxiety, fatigue, or insomnia? And because of brain fog, like you really want to drink the caffeine, but you don't want to make the other stuff worse. What do you do? Okay, big picture, what you want to do is you want to replenish. You want to fully replenish what's in your energy checking account and your energy savings account, because this is going to have the effect of helping your body bringing all your hormone levels up to optimal, getting your system into a more cool, alkaline, anti-inflammatory state. You'll be able to get your blood sugar and inflammation levels under control, and menopause symptoms will pretty much disappear or get under very good control. That's what we want. When you're there, if you want to have the occasional cup of tea, it's just not going to mess you up. But for now, we want to accomplish all that first. So how do you accomplish that? How do you fill up those energy savings accounts in a balanced way that's not going to give you side effects, that's not going to cause any kind of problems? So the way that I help women with this is with customized herbal remedies. I feel like in terms of natural remedies, they're one of the only ones that's targeted enough to have a really noticeable effect here. But they do work best when you support them with the right diet and lifestyle. And so that I work with women on this, finding the customized herbal remedies they need, supported by the right diet and lifestyle. And if you'd like to learn how to do this, how to know, well, what does that mean for my body and my hormones and my metabolism, I want you to take advantage of the free resources that you will find below this video, especially if you watch this on my blog. So if you're on YouTube, just click over to the blog to get those free resources now, because they are amazing and they will give you so much information about how to do this from my perspective. And I would absolutely love to share that with you, because once you know what's going on with your hormones and you know what to do about it, you can feel great during and after menopause. This can just be like such a fun time in your life, and I would love for it to be that for you. So I am Dana Lavoie. I am an acupuncturist, I'm an herbalist, I'm an online educator, and I help women feel wonderful during and after menopause, like I said, using customized herbal remedies supported by diet and lifestyle. I actually absolutely love it. I'd love to hear from you if you need help or have a question. And if you thought that this video was interesting, if you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could go ahead and, hit the like button, subscribe, or just if you're on the blog, just hit one of the share buttons and share it with a friend you think might find it interesting. And definitely send me your questions and comments. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.